Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
We had a fantastic live last week with Cher Jones, and next week for our new weekly Facebook Live series, our guest is Sardeek Love. Sardeek is a professional problem solver and the CEO of Sardeek Love International and president and founder of Infinity Consulting and Training Solutions. He helps individuals, teams, and leaders unlock the tiny shifts in their daily routines that compound over time to produce big results. He does that via his Peak Performance Made Simple system. In short, it's a system for maximizing team output, growing profits, and beating the competition. He teaches individuals, teams, and managers how to leverage the power of habits to deliver better, faster, and cheaper results. So tune in Monday, June 8, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. on our closed Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us a very special guest, and his name is Eric Prugh. Eric oversees product design and solutions engineering at PactSafe. PactSafe is a SaaS company that securely powers clickwrap agreements and eSignatures for businesses like Dell, Wayfair, DoorDash, Extra Space Storage, Upwork, HomeAdvisor, and more. Prior to his current role, Eric spent 7 years at ExactTarget and Salesforce in enterprise pre-sales as well as a product organization. He is a proud Purdue grad and lives in Meridian-Kessler with his wife Liz, their 2 daughters, and 2 dogs. So without further delay, welcome, Eric.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay. So Eric, could you share with us a little bit about your background, how it is that you got into product design and solutions engineering, what your history is like, and just tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I have been writing code / working in design since I was 13 years old. So it was really kind of a nerd early on, and have always been fascinated with the power of technology and the power of the internet. And so at a pretty early age, when I was 16, 17 years old, I decided it was something I was really passionate about pursuing, both in my college degree and my career. And so went to school for that type of stuff, web development, graphic design, became a developer out of school, and just realized I'm not a very good developer and didn't have the level of detail, the attention span for it. Certainly have a massive respect for software engineers and engineers of all types because it requires a ton of hard work, and got into consulting. And that's when I moved into software as a service and found a really interesting consulting job at a company called ExactTarget based in Indianapolis. And that took me on an amazing journey around the world, and a big acquisition by Salesforce, and got to join the product team from there. And the reason I joined the product team is I became fascinated with the problems that a single cloud-based product could solve for such a myriad of people, and how a lot of different companies can make products their own and solve their own specific problems that ultimately become broadly applicable problems for many companies, whether it's within the same vertical or within the same size of organization. And so I really just became enamored with building products that solve problems for people. When I was in sales engineering, it was all about being the catalyst to solve the problem, being the person that was helping customers realize the value of the product.
Right.
And then I really got excited about how can I build products that are going to enable people to solve problems at a little bit higher level. So that's how I moved into it. And then obviously the opportunity at PactSafe came along. One of my really good friends of a very long time had this amazing idea. He was a lawyer, and I had a lot of experience in SaaS. And so it was really a very good combination of skills, complementary set of skills that we were able to come together and start the business, and certainly been a roller coaster since.
Amazing. So you're pretty diverse, gentleman. Share with us, Eric, a little bit about PactSafe. How does it help to basically envelop the customer experience for your clients, and of course make the user experience better for their customers? Just share with us a little bit about that ecosystem and how it works.
Sure. So PactSafe has a little bit of a unique perspective, and when we talk about contracts and accepting contracts, generally you're thinking about a very arduous multi-step approval workflow trying to get a contract signed or a contract logged, or you're managing contracts for vendors. We've really created a very disruptive product that is designed from the very beginning to serve all the companies that have to do contracts at a massive scale. So if you think about Wayfair, who's an amazing customer of ours doing amazing things in the market, they've completely disrupted the way people buy furniture. They don't talk to their customers and have each of them go through a contract workflow to sign something, right? You're going through an e-commerce flow, you're buying furniture, you're buying a really nice light fixture, whatever for your home. The contract is just a seamless part of the experience of checking out. And Amazon, Facebook, early tech companies really pioneered that as a legally enforceable way to enter into a contract with customers. But legal teams at these big companies that were doing business in this way didn't have a way to manage the terms that were being presented to ultimately present those contracts as part of the customer experience. And you had technology teams that were designing these experiences without really knowing what's the right legal best practice for doing so. Mm-hmm. And so it creates all sorts of issues in the process. And the bigger the company, the bigger the problem.
Right.
And so that's really where the business came from and the initial problem that we solved. But what we found is that we became consultants for how a lot of larger, more, I don't want to say old school, but businesses that had done business in a more traditional way. They had salespeople going door to door, calling on businesses. They were doing larger contracts. Well, now that everything is moving online, software as a service has really kind of pioneered the way people expect to buy. E-commerce has changed the way people expect to buy. And so you have companies like Dell that are trying to figure out how best to implement the right customer experiences for doing more business, doing it faster, helping to recognize revenue for their business faster. But then they have an army of lawyers that are concerned about doing business in this way because there still need to be contracts as part of a workflow where a customer engages. So we really bring those two people together, the product person that's designing the experience and the legal person that's ensuring the right level of compliance is there. And we allow them to work in harmony and design the best experience and not worry about all the legal controls or compliance measures because we offer that out of the box. And so we've really been, the product is great. It does amazing things, but it's our people, it's our team that's working with these big companies to navigate how best to do these experiences in a way that everybody benefits, the customer, the end user, and the business.
Right. Brilliant. So basically your integrated platform with a lot of these larger organizations that require these contracts from a legal perspective makes the process that much easier for the end user. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
And in terms of customer experience and its level of priority for your organization, and even you just as a consumer, what the importance of it for you as an individual, how do you think it has changed in the last maybe 3 to 5 years? And do you foresee greater change in that spectrum over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to say 3 to 5 months, just because of
yes, what we're going through, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you see in in the largest businesses, in quarterly earnings calls and annual reports, in the last 3 to 5 years, you've started to see this transition of what CEOs are talking about. Customer experience has always been important, but now it's talking about introducing new ways of doing business, new business models. Companies are talking about, you've got Cisco, who's a huge business that's traditionally been selling, hardware for networking and routers and all that sort of stuff. They're trying to move towards more of a digital model where they're buying companies like Duo Security that are primarily SaaS, and they're trying to bake that into their overall go-to-market strategy. So you're seeing a lot of big companies trying to lean into the subscription model. And companies like Zora have been, evangelizing that transition for quite some time, but you're really starting to see it from even the world's biggest companies. And I think a lot of that centers around the way people expect to access the products that they buy, whether it's B2B or B2C. We wrote a big ebook on how a lot of these big companies are trying to transition to self-service. And one of the interesting stats from a Future Commerce report that SAP did actually was that 72% of buyers now want self-service access to their accounts, to their orders, to their transaction history, and even the ability to buy products online. And that's at the enterprise or B2B level. And I think it's a big thing that's driving that is, as a consumer, you can do so much from your phone. I mean, in today, even in the last 3 to 5 months, it's like, wow, I really don't need to go to a grocery store. I don't need to go anywhere, really. I don't have to go anywhere because there's so much at my fingertips on my phone to be able to get delivered to my door, whether it's, alcohol, groceries, you name it.
Right, yeah.
And so that shift is like, well, the second a B2B buyer wants to engage a B2B brand, usually there's a gated form where they have to talk to somebody, and it's just like, it feels so, it's so heavy, right? And it's what I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a lot of companies, and it's already starting, right? A lot of SaaS companies are moving towards self-service, enabling their customers to find what they need to buy online. They're being more transparent in how they're pricing and going to market. You're seeing a lot of B2C companies that have traditionally done business through grocery stores, through Walmart, even PepsiCo, for example, is a great example. They just recently announced they're launching all these direct-to-consumer sites for all their brands where people can go and order products online, and Pepsi's able to start a direct relationship with their customer as opposed to having to work through the grocery stores or the Walmart or Costco or whoever. So the whole business model is shifting, whether it's offering more subscription-based products if you've been a traditional, more on-premise or hardware type company, and then you've got these direct-to-consumer brands or these big B2C brands moving into a direct-to-consumer model.
Right.
And you've seen a lot of companies like, Warby Parker and a lot of the you got like Casper, you got what's the razor brand? Harry's Razors. There's all sorts of companies that have established that that's a great way to do business, and primarily serving the customer directly online, being great, easy to do business with, and even offering a subscription type model is a great way to go to market, and people love buying in that way. Reduce my upfront cost, make it something that's recurring, and then add recurring value over time through a great customer experience.
Yeah, for sure. Your phone is definitely a very powerful device. I totally agree. I mean, I've seen so many changes, as you indicated, just from, this pandemic. It's actually forced a lot of businesses to do things that maybe they may have had on their radar before, but they've definitely bumped it up as priority because of the time that we're going through.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, can you share with us, how do you stay motivated every day?
Well, it depends on the day. No, I think, it's definitely had its challenges. I mean, I've got 2 very young kids, and which has been so amazing in some aspects and so challenging in others. I think what has helped me to stay motivated is laser focus on priority and ultimately trying to keep my own sanity by starting my week. I just started a process where, on Sunday, I'm making my to-do list for the week. I'm not doing it on Monday morning. That way on Monday morning, I'm just going through and starting to execute on what I need to get done for the week. I haven't hit a week yet where I've actually gotten everything done. I'm always too ambitious. So I need to, a good way to stay motivated is you knock out your to-do list and you check everything off the list. That feels awesome. But I also think for me, it's about being realistic and honest with myself and okay with the fact that I'm not going to get everything done. There are going to be some things that don't move quite as fast as I'd like. But ultimately, it's about managing, trying to manage what I can control and ultimately holding everybody on the team accountable in a very similar way, and understand that we all need time to, go and hang out with our kids and know that ultimately there are people in our lives that we're doing this for, whether it's, spouse, partner, family, friends, what have you. Mm-hmm. That's helped kind of bring me back to normal when things do get a little out of control. But really, one thing I'm most excited about is the speed at which things are happening in all markets right now. It's a pretty inspiring kind of amount of action being driven in healthcare, in manufacturing, in all sorts of fields and industries that have needed that, whether it's digital transformation, whether it's innovation, whether it's collaboration around the world on a cure, on a vaccine. It's really been amazing to watch, and I try to balance the news that I intake with that sort of mentality and information and news stories, as well as like trying to stay up to date on the data and what's happening. But yeah, long-winded answer to your question, but
that's okay. It would be of great influence as a representation, because people deal with things in different ways, and it's a question that we ask all our guests. It's interesting to see how different people stay motivated, because what may work for you may not work for someone else. So at some point, I'm sure that maybe a blended approach, or a little bit of this or a little bit of that, will work for some of our audience that is listening to the different episodes. So we are grateful for all that you shared.
Yeah, great.
All right. Now, could you share with us maybe one resource, an online resource? It could be a tool, and a website, or an app that you absolutely can't live without in your business.
Oh, we have a couple. So I will tell you one thing that has helped me stay sane so I use an email app called Superhuman, which I know is an up and coming solution or product. It's basically just helps people maintain their inbox and stay at inbox zero. It's amazing. Has a lot of like keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that helps you pound through email, which is super important to me, because obviously it's more important than ever to stay on top of things, but not let email be a huge distraction. We also use Quip to help collaborate, and not the toothbrush. It is it's actually a product by Salesforce. It's a great collaboration tool that our whole team has access to, and you can build spreadsheets and kind of manage projects and collaborate really well and all that sort of stuff. So that's been really great. And then I would say other tools that have been immensely helpful to me. Let's see. We also use a project management tool for both our product design and development, and my entire product and design teams use it. It's called Clubhouse, and it's great for just managing, knocking out reporting on tasks across the team, and just so that I'm not having to constantly hammer people with questions about what they're doing. It just gives me really good visibility and gives the whole team visibility into what people are working on, how we're tracking towards goals, and all that sort of stuff.
Very good.
So those are Just a
So
few.
that the Clubhouse is very much like a productivity app as well for you to ensure that people are actually doing work, right?
Right.
Okay, so you have Superhuman, you have Quip, and you have Clubhouse, and we'll have the links to those apps in the show notes of this episode for those of our listeners that would want to tap into those awesome resources.
Great.
All right, Eric, thank you for sharing. Now, could you think of maybe one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could have been a book that you read many years ago, or it could be a book that you've read recently, but it's had a great impact on you.
Yeah, so working in the startup world, I try not to read too many startup-y kind of books, but there's a book I read right as we were starting the business. There are two books I read that I really liked. One, for those considering starting a business, there's a book by a guy named Peter Thiel, who, if you've seen Silicon Valley, is actually he's represented as Peter Gregory on the show.
Right.
And he wrote a book called From Zero to One, which is an amazing book. A lot of people have probably talked about this, but talks a lot about how to build a big business when you're considering starting a company, how to think about the market, how best to carve out your niche in the space, how to expand, all that sort of stuff. It's really good. Peter Thiel he's a little bit controversial of a character, but it's a
That's
a good book.
That's good. Controversial is good. It forces you to think.
That's right. And then I also read The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz,
That's a good one.
which is a really good one, and definitely in times like this has been very good to go back to and really kind of think about how to work through tough times, which we've been very fortunate right now, but it hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading a book right now called The Masters of Doom, which is actually about
Sounds like a sci-fi book.
Yeah, it's about the guys who created id Software, which it's the firm that actually created the game Doom. So it's about their story, and it's super interesting and kind of a crazy story, but lots of cautionary tales about building a business the right and wrong way, that's for sure.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right. Storytelling and experiences is so important because a lot of us learn from other people's stories and their own experiences.
So true.
All right. Now, can you share with us, Eric, what's one thing that's going on in your life right now? Either something that you're really excited about, something that you're probably either working on to develop yourself or your people.
One thing we're really excited about at PactSafe that we're working on as a team is one of the things that has been not a challenge, but really trying to carve out a space is the combination of building a new product and having to explain and educate people on it, as well as really quantifying what the market is, how big is it, what types of customers can we serve, what's the story. That's challenging when you're really building something new. There's no competitive set for what we do, which is a good and bad thing at times, right? Because you're not coming up against people that have bought this type of product before, so they need help understanding how to buy it, what the value is, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. We recently partnered with a third-party research firm that's going to help us kind of understand and carve out what the space looks like for us. And engaging analysts or research firms like this it's a big bet. It's a long, expensive endeavor to kind of help understand how best to build the company and product that's going to be unique and build a new market and help establish where we fit and all that sort of stuff. But overall, the prospects have been really good, and I think for us, it's giving us a good perspective at a high level on how to think about our role in the customer experience, which is a huge part of what we do, but we haven't done the best job of capturing the highest level of value for what we do. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, what the space really looks like. So I think we've been working in startup world, you kind of work hyper focused at a very low level for what your product can do, because we don't have 5 or 10 years of research and development of a bunch of engineers building this thing out, right? We've got a limited limited set of engineers that have been hard at work for 5 years. So we have been very in the weeds on the problems that we solve and what these analyst firms help with. And for those that don't know, Aragon Research, Forrester, Gartner, these types of firms, if you're trying to look at high-level macro trends and understand what's happening and what markets exist and what people are trying to do, they're really helpful in shaping what's really happening and articulating it in a clear way that speaks to the real trends in the market. And so I do advise, I don't advise it for everybody, but I think for people that have similar problems to us, we believe it's going to be transformational. So super excited about the opportunity. And it's something that my whole team is helping us sort out, all the way from the CEO down to some of the product marketing folks on my team who are hard at work trying to cast the vision, if you will, of what we're trying to do.
Very good. Well, data is king. So the more capitalized you can get on your data to understand specifically what the pain points of your customer avatar is, then I'm sure you'll be able to add value to those people if you get extremely granular about it. So the research approach is definitely an excellent technique to get specific on that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, Eric. So our listeners have listened to you. They're very interested in PactSafe, and they'd probably like to follow you or keep in touch with you or connect with you online, especially like how we're all networking online now. We can't network face-to-face anymore, right?
Right.
Where can they find you online after they've listened to this episode?
Yes, of course. So you can find me on Twitter. It's just EPRUGH is my handle, or feel free to find me on LinkedIn. You can just search my name, Eric Prugh, and I would love to connect.
Awesome. All right. So before we wrap this interview up, we always like to ask our guests if there's a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, they will revert to this particular quote or saying to help them navigate through those rough waters or those rough times to kind of get them refocused. Do you have one of those?
I think as a product person, I've always subscribed to Henry Ford's quote of if people had asked me if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And I, because you take customer feedback on how you're building your product or your experience as a very key important input and data point as you build out your company and product. But ultimately, you've got, as the business owner, entrepreneur, you've got all this experience and tribal knowledge and vision for where things could go, and you've been thinking about it every day 10 times more than any of your customers really would. So ultimately, I've learned a lot by relying on that quote over the years.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Eric. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So thank you for joining us today, Eric Prugh from PactSafe. For those of you that are listening to this episode, we will have the links to Eric's Twitter and LinkedIn handles in the show notes of this episode. And if you really enjoyed the episode, please leave us a comment or a like. And of course, connect with PactSafe if you believe that would be a great integration for your business. Or if you know a business that would benefit from it we always recommend sharing information. So thank you again, Eric, for joining us today. I know you took time out of your busy schedule and we're super grateful for that.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thank you for listening to Navigating the Customer Experience. If you'd like to connect with us even more, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And of course, feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.